We are live here Monday morning for me here on the west coast of the US, Monday afternoon, early evening for our fabulous guest, Lisa Ross Marcus in Europe. And welcome everyone to the Ovadia Heart Health Livestream. Before we get started, we have a little piece of housekeeping we need to do, just as a reminder for all our guests that this podcast is not intended for personal medical advice. If you are interested in talking to someone from the Ovadia team, please reach out to us at team@ifixhearts.com and someone will address your needs. And welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Great to be with you today.
Yeah, excited to host you. And we're just going to jump right into it. And the best person to introduce you is you. So I'm going to throw the gauntlet to you and have you tell our audience, some of which may know who you are and your work, and some may not, to share us your shortened version of Lisa Ross Marcus.
Okay. Thank you, Krisna. So I'm American, joining you from Amsterdam today, where I have lived for more than 40 years. I came to Europe as a dancer, and I later had a career as a choreographer. And actually, Krisna and I have a history there, as we used to work together, dance together, create performances together. So when it was time for me to transition out of that field, after dipping my toe into a few different things to sort of get in touch with the real world, I landed in the field of professional development. And I've been doing that for the past 20 years, first as a corporate communication trainer. And I also had the privilege of working with Krisna in that capacity as well when she still lived in Europe. I have been an intercultural consultant and an executive coach. And during the past few years, I have narrowed my focus to something I feel very passionate about, which is leadership development for women. And in my ambition to elevate and sustain more women in leadership roles, I have created a framework called the Female Leadership Wheel, based on my research, based on coaching diverse women, and listening to women leaders tell their stories. And this framework, the Female Leadership Wheel, has been further developed into a coaching tool in collaboration with a company called TCO International, and as a training tool as well. So this wheel is divided into 8 sections, and each section focuses on one area of leadership that is important for women, that women tend to struggle with in different ways. And that includes things like negotiation skills, strategic networking, mobilizing others, communication skills. And right up there with all of that is self-care practice. And this is something that is essential for all leaders, because part of being a leader is having the authority to make decisions. Leaders need to think clearly under pressure, and they need to also get others to move in a certain direction. So there's a lot of heavy lifting involved in leadership. And embracing self-care practice enables leaders to sustain their energy and focus, and also to role model, in fact, what it is to create and promote a healthy business culture.
I'm going to jump in just for a second, if you don't mind here. And that's a lot of information. We just want to help our listeners unpack a little bit and make a little tie here into what Ovadia Heart Health is promoting is also metabolic health, and that definitely involves self-care. We often say if the leaders are just involved on the program in paper but not doing it themselves or taking care of themselves, makes it very hard for employee wellness to be implemented. I also just want to interject. I see Laura asked a very specific health question here. And Laura, I'm going to remind all our listeners, this is not intended for personal medical advice, but please do reach out to the team at ifixhearts.com and they can address your personal medical question. But yes, back to Lisa's female leadership wheel here, and want to sort of get into these different components of the wheel. So didn't mean to hijack you. Would you want to dive back into the self one, or you want to explain just a little bit more about some of the components?
Well, I have so much I want to say about self-care practice that I would invite anyone who's interested to know more about the female leadership wheel, or maybe being interested in being coached with it. Please visit my website, incoaching.nl, which is being put up here, to learn more about it. And also please feel free to reach out to me about it. There's so much I want to dig into about self-care practice. And the first thing I want to say is just link to what you just said, Krisna. I completely endorse this idea that leaders who make a commitment to bring employee wellness programs to their companies really need to role model, to walk the talk, not only to inspire everyone to get on board with all these new opportunities that are coming. But, the other side of it that I just wanted to point out is, no matter how successfully a leader performs from a business perspective, when a leader gives the impression that they are not taking care of themselves, so, looking chronically exhausted, haggard, stressed out of breath, either consciously or unconsciously, it can really raise trust issues. So people can be wondering like, can they really handle their responsibilities? Are they going to be okay? Is their leadership sustainable in the long term? So even for that reason alone, it's so important in terms of trust building for leaders to really role model taking care of themselves. I've also had a personal journey in developing my own self-care practice. I consider myself a recovered superwoman. I used to have a mindset that, to quote the movie, I had to be everything everywhere all at once. And that got me into a lot of trouble. And I had a health crisis with a potentially life-threatening disease, which thankfully I recovered from. But this prompted me to stop everything and make some major life changes. So I sold my business. I left a training job that had just absolutely grueling hours. I resigned from a board position. And this wasn't just checking off, things I'm going to stop doing. This was really like realigning my identity and my values. And what emerged from that were two really important core values. And one is well-being and also making a difference for others. So whether you are leading a company, leading a team, leading your own business, leading a community project, or leading your family, my intention today is to share some practical steps and to start to shift some mindsets to be able to integrate self-care as a foundation for daily life.
Oh, that's so important. And many of us at the Ovadia Heart Health team were at the recent conference, Low Carb USA in San Diego. And one theme that kept reemerging from various speakers, we had scientists, researchers, MDs, coaches, all kinds of different individuals presenting, is what they call in terms, and this is from the words of Gary Taubes, a very prominent author in this field, he called a conversion experience. So a personal event that happened to you, which allows you not only to theorize about something that you want to, help inspire others, but to actually have experienced, you felt, you lived day to day. And your story about, your superwoman decades, and where you come now. And when we talk about health, that's something also many people, are really great then at helping others when they've had a health experience. Now, we do not want people to, we're not wishing them to get ill by any stroke of the imagination, but these experiences are important to share with people so they understand you've actually experienced what they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that, Krisna. I love this this expression, conversion experience. I'm going to take that with me. So just to kick off things with self-care, the first thing I want to say is you need to take control of it yourself. So there's a great quote from a woman named Katie Reed, and that is, give the world the best of you, not what's left of you.
That's powerful.
And that, I find it really powerful. And that's really saying, hey, let's not settle for dragging ourselves out of bed, slagging through the workday, getting home, pooping out on the couch, but actually holding out for this idea of showing up energized and ready to contribute our best thinking and our unique talents to all those who we work with or who we spend our time with. Because chronic overwork, whether that's at home or in the workplace, is unsustainable. And it harms you, it harms the quality of your work, and it harms your loved ones. So when we're practicing self-care and incorporating it into our daily lives, it's like we're able to run on our full engine instead of kind of limping along on our spare battery a lot of the time. And the thing is, nobody's going to do this for you. Nobody's going to save you. You need to take responsibility for your own self-care practice. Or I would say we need to do that. And it is possible because our greatest resource is the power that we grant to ourselves. So what are these powers? First, it's the power of choice. So when we decide, we make the choice to prioritize self-care to enhance both our personal and professional contributions, it builds a sense of dignity. And it makes us feel that we have a sense of control over our own lives by making that choice. It's the power of persistence. So not only the persistence to keep going when maybe we slack off a bit, maybe we miss some of our workouts, or we have a binge on junk food, to like say, no, I'm going to get back on the horse. But it's also the persistence in the face of some resistance or pushback you might be experiencing when you start to make self-care practice a part of your life. Because some people may not like it because they're going to have to start taking responsibility for things you used to do for them.
Yeah. And there's a lot to unpack, and that so aligns with what we're doing, not only in our employee wellness programs. And if anyone is interested in finding out more about the Ovadia Heart Health Employee Wellness programs, please reach out to us at our website /wellness. This idea of controlling your health. We like to say we are very different than other organizations, which are much more disease management, waiting till you're sick and then trying to do something about it. We'd like to go at the front end of what allows you, the individual within the company, to be more in control of your health choices. And maybe the first step in that is developing a really good self-care practice. And those are things that we emphasize in our programs. And I just want you to repeat that line again about the control, because that was just really powerful.
Well, that has to do with the first area of power we have in our own self-care, which is when we choose to prioritize healthcare, it builds a sense of dignity and a sense of control over our own lives.
Fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah. So another power we have then is self-compassion. So accepting our mistakes, learning from those times when we do overcommit ourselves and our energy, we become depleted, and just instead don't beat ourselves up. Stay curious about what is supporting our own well-being. And it's also the power of new narratives. So to challenge a belief that comes from some quarters that self-care is selfish. And especially women get this a lot. You've got to take care of others instead of yourself. And to really reframe the story we tell ourselves about self-care as something that's really generous, because it enables us to better take care of others, whether it's our colleagues at work or our teams and our families. Self-care is a priority and not a luxury. It's a foundation for successful career and fulfilling life.
And we would say it's a foundation for improving your overall health and well-being, right? And we are a metabolically health-focused company. Obviously, we have a heart surgeon at the helm of our team, so we're heart health focused as well. And you hit on a really important theme for us, and which is a theme this past year inspired by a man named Nick Norwitz. He's I think, PhD at Harvard. He's also just graduated from medical school. And it's his hashtag theme about stay curious and stay curious about your health. And that might mean also making yourself a little vulnerable.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to talk about that a little further on in this time together. I want to just start with something really basic, and that is the mind-body connection. So that's something that we have whether we are aware of it or not. And a great example of that is if you've been out, if you had a late night of partying, maybe a little bit to drink or maybe a lot to drink, and you wake up the next day and you feel really tired and you feel a little bit hungover, it can be difficult to think clearly and concentrate because of that physical state. From the other direction, if we feel anger, our body will react to that. So we'll get cramped up, or our jaw will clench. We might even make fists. If we're elated, we win the race, our arms will go up. And that's not something you think to do. Your body just does it. And we know this because people who are blind, who's never, ever seen anybody make this gesture, will also make it themselves when they feel elated, like they've just had a great triumph. So we are receiving information from different areas of our body, not just our head, but also from our heart area, from our gut area. And this is scientific because there are neurons and neurotransmitters, not only in the brain, but also in the heart and in the gut area. And these are all connected by the vagus nerve, which regulates a huge range of organ functions. So when we enhance our awareness of body sensations, this provides real-time emotional feedback to us. So what I've learned about myself is that when I feel very worried about making a mistake or things going wrong, I get some discomfort in my heart area. When I'm overwhelmed and things are just too much for me, I get a queasy feeling in my stomach. And when I'm in absolute high stress, over the top stress, my head starts to feel light and hot. Now, different individuals might experience different sensations in their bodies. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that there's a lot of value in learning to recognize these physical signals. They're not inherently good or bad. but they can guide better decisions for us. So if I get that feeling in my chest, like, oh, I might have made a mistake, or things might not be completely the way they should be, it could be an invitation to be like, hey, why don't you double check that report you wrote? Or if I feel that sense of being overwhelmed, it could be a moment to, make myself vulnerable and say, hey, I need some help here.
Great
So,
stuff. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. So that's about, being really connected with our physical sensations and heightening the awareness about them. But what about when that connection is severed? And that's what I call disembodiment. So that's when we start to lose awareness of our very basic physical needs and limits. And that can be things like needing to eat something, or being thirsty and needing to drink, or even maybe needing to go to the bathroom. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we're doing or feel so pressured, all that stuff goes out the window. But the reality is that if we keep going over these limits, if we keep overworking, our performance is going to suffer. Just like if we over-exercise, we're inevitably going to get an injury. So when we are disembodied, we don't have any warning signals for depletion. And then we are really at a risk of pushing past exhaustion. And this can prevent good self-care decisions, not only for ourselves, but also for our teams. It's like being stranded on a dark, deserted road in the middle of the night with no more gas in your car. That is the road to burnout.
And burnout is real. We just I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, we had our guests were talking specifically about nurse burnout, and they've been building an app specifically to address their specific needs, because they are very specific. They're dealing with life and death matters on a daily basis. In case any of you listening would like to reach out to Lisa to hear more about not only the female leadership wheel, but other aspects we'll be covering in this conversation, you can do so here at her incoaching.nl, and NL stands for the Netherlands, for those of you not sure about what that is. And I just want to throw in the quote. If anyone had listened to the interview at the beginning here, Lisa and I shared a background as professional dancers. Lisa was also doing choreography as well. A quote from Martha Graham, which touches on what you just talked about. The body never lies, right? From Martha Graham, very famous modern dance choreographer for decades in New York City. And however, many of us are not listening to our bodies. What you're talking about is take notice if you're feeling stressed, take notice if you're feeling elated. But that requires this self-care time and skill. I think it's really a skill that you need to develop.
Absolutely. And it's a kind of fine-tuning a certain awareness of, what am I feeling in my body right now? And, if you get in this zone of disembodiment where you just feel like you notice you're really feeling disconnected from your body and not able to pick up on any signals, a great question to ask yourself is, if your body could talk, what would it say to you right now? So
take note of that, listeners. So maybe get your sticky pad out, your notes out,
and your computer screen.
Right,
It's a great reminder. It's a great reminder, and you feel totally lost. Just ask yourself that one question.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to get to a couple, we've mentioned a few words, really heavy words like burnout, right? Disembodiment, things. I noticed in, some of the things you're talking about, and if you had this further down the line, we can know, but you talked about breathing regulation and the self-scan, some actual tools, because part of our theme here at Ovadia Heart Health is to give people actual real practical things, to not just put the fear in them, what they should be worried about, but what could you do about it?
You took the words right out of my mouth, because my next topic is about regulating our breathing, which is, again, something that you can do yourself. You don't need anybody else or any tools for it. So when we get stressed, one of the things that'll happen to our breath is that it'll tend to become very shallow and very high up in our chest. And even if you feel like doing it right now, you can just take a high chest breath. I'm doing it, and it's so uncomfortable. I almost feel like I'm choking. But when we are stressed or just overexcited, this is what will happen to our breath. And so the first thing we can do when that happens is to just slow down and shift our breath lower down in our body. So that's called belly breathing or low breath. And it's obviously, the breath has just much more space to circulate. And it's just easier on us in terms of our breathing. So that alone is already something that we can do. A little bit more behind what's going on is that when we inhale, that activates the sympathetic nervous system. So that's our fight or flight response. And that's like putting our foot on the gas pedal. When we exhale, that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is more connected with rest. So the analogy for that could be like putting our foot on the brakes. What happens when we get really stressed is that our breathing gets like overactivated. So it's like we're driving a car with our foot full down on the gas and slamming the brakes at the same time. So no wonder we feel so bad. So when we can regulate our breathing, so by stopping, slowing down, consciously shifting our breath down to our bellies, it literally cools down our metabolism. It lowers the stress hormone cortisol, and it just calms us down. Now, there's quite a few different breathing techniques out there. One that I like is called box breathing. And that's very simply, I see you nodding your head, Krisna, so I'm sure you know it. It's just very simply, you take a breath in for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts, you breathe out for 4 counts, and you hold for 4 counts, and then you repeat. So it's very symmetrical, like a box.
Yeah, and this is one we recommend also in our worksite wellness programs. The Navy SEALs are known for doing the box breathing, and
Olympic athletes also use it.
Right.
So try that one out. If you want to look further on the internet, there's plenty of resources there. The bottom line is that calm, regulated breathing improves focus and decision making. And so take that and put it in your self-care practice toolbox. The other thing I want to talk about is, self-scan. And this is based on the premise that it's really worthwhile to connect with ourselves before we connect with others. So you know how in the morning, many of us will either turn on the radio or check our phones for the weather forecast, because we want to know, what to expect, how we can prepare ourselves for the day, what we're going to encounter in the elements. This thing that I just call sitting with yourself is like turning on the radio or checking for your personal broadcast. And this entails spending 5, 10, 15, 20, more if you want, minutes daily, sitting quietly to check in with yourself. I think the best time to do this is in the morning. There are people who prefer to do it at the end of the day, which can be another kind of check-in, a sort of reflection on, how the day went, what happened, what you learned. Whatever time you do it, it has similarities to meditation, but it's a bit more active, and it's really focused on practical self-awareness. So all you need to do is choose a quiet, distraction-free space, which can be a bedroom, another room in your house, your car, your office. I would set a timer and just breathe slowly. You can sit anywhere, in a chair, on the ground, wherever you're comfortable. You breathe slowly and you count your breaths 1 to 10. And each inhale and exhale is one breath. And then you repeat. And while you're doing this, take time to notice your emotions. Just notice, hey, what am I feeling right now? Notice your physical sensations. Is there any tension in your body? Are you feeling something somewhere? Can you release tension if there is any? Again, it's a great moment to connect up to your physical awareness. Notice your energy levels. And do all of this without judgment. So again, stay curious. This is just a moment to do a self-scan. It's also a time to acknowledge thoughts about the day's responsibilities or what's going to unfold for you during the day. What are you looking forward to? What are you dreading? What do you feel about what's coming up for you? And this gives you then an opportunity to reflect on what is your intention for the day? What are the challenges? Is there a challenge? How are you going to meet it? And really decide, what is the mindset I want to bring to this day and all those who I encounter. So the main benefit of doing this is not just a quiet moment for yourself, but instead of starting your day on autopilot, you start your day with conscious and deliberate choices, which is extremely empowering for you and for others.
Yeah. And this practice doesn't really have to take a whole lot of time.
No.
Again, we're all working with individuals who think, oh, my day is so full, I don't have a time to put something else in. It could just be a few minutes.
It can be 5 minutes, literally.
Yeah.
5 minutes. It's better to do 5 minutes than nothing.
Right. Exactly. And I want to go back and just touch on something about the breathing too. Something we encourage is, yes, the Navy SEALs do box breathing. Do they do it when they're out on a project, an encounter? Yes. But they're also practicing it all the time so that when they are in that stressful situation, they can tap into it like, the click of a finger. Unless you're practicing it, it will not be there for you in those stressful times. So developing that practice outside, I think, is something we try to encourage. We also recommend the book Breath. I'm sure you're familiar with that, by James Nestor. Which dives even heavily into the whole science behind breath. And I love this tip about the AM check-in time for yourself, maybe checking in with yourself before you're going to check in with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
A great tool there. I want to remind the audience, if any topics come up, you've got questions, please drop them in the chat for us. And again, if you're curious about Lisa and her work, check her out at incoaching.nl. If you're curious, that's the word of today, about our employee health and wellness programs, check those out at Ovadia Heart Health /wellness. And a lot of topics we've already even touched on. We have various white papers on resiliency, on musculoskeletal injuries, on addiction in the workplace, on many of these topics we've touched on here this morning. Download our white papers for free. All you have to do is put your email in. You get all 7 of them for free. All right, let's carry on with the female leadership wheel here this morning with Lisa Ross Marcus.
Thanks, Krisna. So the next topic I want to talk about is leadership and energy. And I want to bring in a quote of Peter Drucker. I was going to say Drucker in the Dutch, way, Drucker, who was an early researcher and consultant on management theory. And he says, your first and foremost job as a leader is to take charge of your own energy and then to help orchestrate the energy of those around you. So that, I think, is a really powerful way to think about leadership. And when we talk about energy management, which I know is so much of the work that you're doing at Ovadia Heart Health with metabolic health, I'm just going to briefly touch on what I have discovered as like the 4 pillars of energy management. So eating, the food you eat, feeding the brain, impacting on your energy, sleep, balancing deep sleep, which is then repairing the body, with REM sleep, which is restoring your mind, your mental capacities, moving, obviously, regular physical activity, whether you're taking a walk around the block or the parking lot, or doing yoga, or having some kind of fitness regimen, and relaxing. And when I say relaxing, I mean non-work activities, having social time, change of scenery, change of rhythm. The other piece of that is rest and recovery, because without time to recover after exertion, performance and quality of life will decline. And in some quarters, rest is seen as like a radical act. And I would say, especially women suffer from this, what you're taking time to rest? Again, because of this pressure from society that we should take care of others before we take care of ourselves. So, reclaiming our right to rest is challenging that. And we do have a right to that. All of us do. And I would just invite everyone to discover, what is it that you need to do to recharge your batteries? Is it like having just a really good night's sleep and sleeping late, not setting your alarm, or walking in nature, or just seeing some culture? Whatever it is, you figure that out for yourself, because it's your self-care practice.
And this totally aligns with what we would call our pillars at Ovadia Heart Health, and also many others in the metabolic health space. Obviously, nutrition. We focus on nutrition that is focused on managing really well your blood sugar and insulin. So making sure that you're not on the roller coaster ride of you got energy, then you have no energy.
Yeah.
Sleep is a crucial piece, sleep, getting outdoors, sunshine. And then it doesn't take a lot of time. I think Cornell University did a study a few years ago that said even as minimal as 5 to 10 minutes in an outdoor setting, even in an urban setting, can reduce, I think they stated something like 20 or 30% your cortisol level. And this folds right into that recharging your battery. And I like your line of rest is seen as radical. We would say it's seen as fundamental.
It is fundamental. Unfortunately, some people see it as radical. So we need to normalize. We need to normalize rest. That's what this is really about.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the next thing I want to talk about is resilience. And I know you've written a very comprehensive white paper on leadership and resilience, which is predominantly from the physical side of resilience. And I want to talk about the emotional side of resilience and recovery, because emotions also play a key role. We need to look after our bodies, but we need to also look after our emotions to bounce back from losses, coping with setbacks, and avoiding discouragement. Because, resilience is what helps us to regain our positive outlook and manage energy draining emotions so that we can, put them aside and keep pursuing our goals. So it's really useful to notice when your resilience is low. And we all have our different symptoms. For me, I notice my resilience is low when I cannot cope with any change of plan, even like any kind of appointment being shifted, even like 1 hour, somehow that really throws me off. Some people become defensive when their resilience is low. Some withdraw and become cold towards others. I mean, it has a wide range of ways it shows up, but it's good to understand, what are my symptoms of low resilience? So something that happens to us when our resilience is low is like our emotional immunity is low. So, when our physical immunity is low, we are very vulnerable to getting sick. And when our emotional immunity is low, our inner critic has a field day. So that's the part of us that just loves to give us a lot of negative self-talk, like, oh, you screwed that up. It's all your fault. You're not capable of that. What were you thinking? This is so beyond you. And, that kind of compounds already how bad we feel. So, this inner critic, this is something that we use in coaching, this idea of giving parts of ourselves a name. So in order to quiet the part of ourselves we call the inner critic, we can invite other supportive inner voices to help us. So one of those voices I call the wise elder. And that's a part of us that, has known us our whole lives and can kind of step back and place the setback in a broader context, sort of put it into proportion. It's a part of us that can say, okay, what can I learn from what happened? Makes it okay for us to fail. And just to use this as an opportunity to learn and to think about, okay, what will I do differently in the future? There's another voice we can invite to the table, and that's what I call the creative problem solver. And this is a part of us that can bring some optimism, some energy, some new ideas, think out of the box, do some brainstorming, and actually give us the courage to go out of our comfort zone, to try something new. And it's a way to kind of give us hope, to lift us out of that dark place, and to feel free to experiment, to be flexible, to try something new, so that we don't just sit in this kind of place of feeling low. So these are ways to get our resilience back so that we can then move on.
And this is an important piece you bring up here too about resiliency, that it's not just a physical concept, but it's, as in your words, an emotional concept. One of my very favorite people right now is Dr. Georgia Ede. She was formerly a clinical psychiatrist at Harvard, is now on her own, wrote a book, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. She has a saying that says, well, you can't really separate the brain and the body, because as far as I know, the head is attached to the body, which is very true here. But I think it's embracing this idea of emotional resilience as well as physical resilience. And what are you doing to enhance both of those?
Sort of make them create a partnership.
Create a partnership. Great way to look at it. Well, as I want to just highlight to this idea to our listeners and even myself, I like to remind myself of these things, is what are my symptoms of low resilience? And just one will be kind of when you wake up, you've got that little bit of drag. You're not so excited even about having your coffee. You're just kind of going, okay, let's get this day started, and then hopefully I'll feel better. But to recognize our own unique symptoms of low resilience.
Yeah. So the last topic I want to share with you is actually foundational for everything I have already shared. And this is boundary setting. And it is so fundamental that I've heard it called the oxygen of self-care. Because no matter what kind of well-intentioned self-care plans we make for ourselves, if we cannot set boundaries with others, we are likely to fail. So what do we mean by this, by boundary setting? The first thing is stopping the automatic yes. So how many of us, somebody comes to us and just asks us, can you help me with this? Can you do that? And, we're nice people, or we want to be helpful, whatever it is. And we go, yeah, sure. And then we realize, wow, we get overloaded. Not only do we get overloaded ourselves, but in the workplace, this fosters workplace inequality, because what happens is a small percentage of the people end up doing a lot of work, and the rest of them think, oh, they like to do that. They'll clean up my mess. Oh, they always do that for me. They're kind of even oblivious to the fact that other people are being overburdened because of their tendency, their impulse to say yes automatically to whatever's asked of them. So part of this is also noticing your signals, your physical signals, because how many times have you said yes to something when you actually wanted to say no? So if you can recognize some kind of signal physically when someone asks you to do something and be like, okay, there it goes. I need to say no. And that's the thing we need to get comfortable with, is the no, because it protects our energy. And it clarifies our limits to others. So when we are going to practice our no in the workplace, one of the things that can help us is when someone asks us to do something or take on another task, pause before answering. Take a beat. Think about it. You can even say, you know what? Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. There's other ways to decline. Anything from, oh, what makes you ask me to do this? Why can't you do this yourself? Could you ask somebody else to do it? Sorry, I really don't have the time for it. Sorry, it's really not aligned with what I'm working on. There's many ways to do it, but we need to start and we need to practice. On the home front, it can be harder to reset boundaries because we set them early on in relationships. So if you're someone who enjoyed making elaborate meals for your partner when you first got together, they may not understand why you seem to always be in a bad mood now when you're cooking dinner. So, we talk about the 9 to 5 workplace conversations. We also have another time slot, and that's the 5 to 9. And those are the kitchen table conversations we have at home, where we can really have conversations to take an inventory of the domestic responsibilities and really address together the imbalances through honest dialogue. And the other way to set a boundary, even with yourself, is to put self-care on your agenda. So schedule it on a certain day, on certain days, at certain times. And this is going to mean, you're going to rebalance your routine by either offloading some stuff, deprioritizing some stuff, or sharing responsibilities differently.
And I guess this is a perfect time when we talk about boundary setting as we get closer towards the end of our time here together. And this is very powerful. At the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to planning. Lisa and I both have a history as professional dancers, and it's all about planning your class you're going to take in the model, planning food you're going to have between class and rehearsal, what are you going to do after rehearsal. And that's what makes, I think, dancers, and this is my little plug to any of you hiring, dancers are some of the most disciplined people I've ever worked with. I would highly encourage you to look. Lisa is a perfect example of that dedication and discipline. A question we ask all of our guests is, what's one or two, again, we're here towards the end, 1 or 2 low-hanging fruit. We've talked a lot of practical tips today, and I highly encourage everyone, whether you're a leader or you're striving to be a leader, to go back and listen to all the tips. What are 1 or 2 low-hanging fruit that either someone in the workplace or someone in a leadership role could actually start working on today?
Yeah. So something really important, I think, is encouraging flexible work schedules. So really focus on the output, not managing the process. As long as employees meet their responsibilities, meet their deadlines, I would say give them as much freedom as possible to determine their own work schedules, because it gives a sense of agency to determine how you will prioritize your time, of course, in consultation with your team. But this is also including scheduling your own self-care practice and being able to really have the the freedom to integrate that in your workday the way it works best for you. The other thing is, and I think this can really work wonderfully after. It could happen before, but maybe after, on the heels of a employee wellness program that's been offered by Ovadia Heart Health, is to encourage regular well-being check-in conversations among teams. So to make it a team effort for everybody to have self-care practice, and create a safe space for team members to share, where are their bottlenecks of pressure, where there's a risk of us getting overworked, and really brainstorm together about communication and processes, how they could be streamlined in service of creating a really healthy work environment.
Those are golden nuggets for anyone. That wellness check-in, that's a little phrase I'm going to steal from our conversation today. And it's right up here on the screen. If you're interested in finding out more about our Ovadia Heart Health Employee Wellness programs, which are metabolic health focused, you can reach out to us here. If you'd like to know more about Lisa, her female leadership wheel, and anything else she's doing in the coaching space, incoaching.nl. Please do also connect with either of us. So with Lisa, you just type in her name, Lisa Ross Marcus, on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's always good to follow what people are doing on LinkedIn to see what they're writing about, what they're talking about, both the challenges and successes. Also, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn and connect with Dr. Ovadia and his team. We love to hear from you and any of your questions. What a fantastic episode. Thank you so much. First, it's so much fun to see you. And we've got such a long history together, and we're going to continue to make that history together. And keep doing all the fabulous work. And it's wonderful to see how they might seem different. You're coaching, what you're doing in our metabolic health focused work, but there's so many similarities and there's so many overlapping pieces.
I absolutely agree with that. And you can sort of take them and make a partnership. We use that word already, but to really make a partnership between these ideas around self-care practice and the practice of metabolic health, which is what you're doing at Ovadia Heart Health.
Thank you. So thank you, audience, for joining in. We'll be back next Monday. I believe Amanda Decker will be our guest. We'll be back at our usual time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. Please do send us any questions, find out more. And thank you so much for being my friend and colleague. And have a good day.
Right back at you, Krisna. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Have a great day in Amsterdam. And we're going to launch our day out here on the West Coast in the US.
Have a good one.
All right.
Okay.